The game systems I grew up on were Nintendo, then Sega, then Xbox. I was never a Sony kid, but I did love playing on my friends' PlayStations. And I never had any portable consoles myself, much less the PSP, but now, thanks to a kit that replaces the guts of a PSP with a Raspberry Pi, I get to see what this thing's all about. And it's nice. A lot nicer feeling than the Knoll 2 or MAME gear that I built a few years ago. I think I get why people liked the PSP despite it having a weird UMD optical drive for game storage. Anyway, this build is using PSPi, a decade-long passion project from Atom or othermod on GitHub. It's an open-source hardware project that replaces the guts of a PSP 1000 with a Raspberry Pi 0, 02W, or CM4. Technically, the CM5 could run too, but I haven't tested that. It'd probably need some underclocking so it doesn't burn itself out. So I went with a CM4, and using this thing, I'm reminded of just how fun it was back when you could just buy a game and play it. No online stores, no signing into a Microsoft account to play, no 80 gigabyte updates to sit there waiting to install. You know, Joe Cirillo had a great take on why I think we have so much nostalgia for these things in his video, The PSP in 2026 is Insane. Go watch that video, I'll link to it below. But let me put you overhead and I'll walk you through how this is put together. Before I get started, I'm just going to do a quick overview here. So if you want to see the full details for how this thing is put together and how you can redo your old PSP if you have one, this Macho Nacho Productions video has like everything in it, so go check that out. I'll link to it in the description. And for this build, it's only compatible with the original PSP 1000 series. That's this slightly thicker case. This is apparently the original PSP. I didn't know there were multiple versions because, like I said, I'm not like a Sony guy. I never had any of these portable consoles. I only had the ones that you put in your living room. And these have these little doors on the back that you could put in your optical media, your UMD discs in there. And the way that this works is you could actually swap out the Raspberry Pis. I'll pop this off here, this little door. And this is where the Pi goes. There's a spring here. Make sure you don't break that off when you're doing this or break the little tab that holds it on. But this is the Raspberry Pi Compute Module 4 in here. And it's only compatible with the Pi 0, Pi 0 2W, which is probably the best value for this. The 2W has a chip that won't get quite as hot. I think the biggest issue is the CM4 on here gets a little overheated in my experience. And that definitely causes some issues with some games and some use cases. Yeah, so this is, whoops, I just remembered I have the Wi-Fi antenna plugged in. That's another cool thing. The Wi-Fi that's built into the PSP actually works directly with the Compute Module 4's little Wi-Fi jack. Just make sure that you switch it to use the external Wi-Fi in your configuration. I think that the PSP images do that for you. But this is just a little carrier card that you can put a CM4 on. If you don't want to use a CM4, you don't need this card at all. You can just plug the Pi straight into here, as long as you have the Pi 0 with headers or Pi 0 2W with headers. That just goes right on there. With the CM4, it has a little pad here. And the one annoying thing about installing a CM4 in here is you got to route this cable, which is not optimized perfectly for this particular setup. And if you're not careful, that cable will go right into this little pad. And that's not helpful, so don't do that. But yeah, that's how that works. And the back of it, you can either do an eMMC compute module, or in my case here, I have a micro SD card. I have a light compute module 4. This whole setup should work with a compute module 5. That's something that I have not tested yet. I might or might not test that out on here. But the problem with the compute module 5, this board is very thin. It doesn't have a ton of thermal mass in it. And basically, the compute module is turned over facing into this board. And then it tries dissipating the heat through the board. And that's never the best option, but it's a better option than just having it dump heat into nothingness, I guess. There are some guys who have been modding this to try to get better cooling through the backplate. It's a little tricky because there's not a lot of great ways to get heat from under this out here. But if you had like a little fan that would blow air over this, it would definitely help quite a bit. The heat is probably the major downside to running a CM4 on here. But the CM4 allows you to run a lot of games that need a little bit more horsepower. Another thing to keep in mind is if you buy like a shell of a PSP online, there are some parts that you do need from the PSP itself to work with this. You can get replacements for a lot of things, like I think there's Z Labs as one site I saw a lot of PSP parts on. If you just buy the shell, you might need to buy some membranes for the buttons. There are some things that you will need from an original PSP that you might want to buy like a broken PSP instead of buying just the shell of a PSP. So yeah, with that all in mind, I'm going to get this back cover back on. and we can boot it up and I'll show you what the interface is like. The coolest thing about all this is everything works the same as it did as a PSP. Like these shoulder buttons work, all these buttons work. The home button goes to the home screen, volume up and down works. This mutes the audio. I don't remember what the display button does on here. I know that I don't think that you can plug in a display, an external display on here, but you can plug in headphones if you have the little headphone board, which uses pogo pins to attach here on the main board. See, it attaches like this and gives you the headphone. So that works. I think it's mono right now. I don't know if stereo audio is supported yet. That might be coming at some point. And then select and start work and the power button. So let's turn this on. I have it charged up. So you just turn it on and it should boot up into, I think I have Lakka on here. This guy and this guy, I have used RetroPi in the past. And there is a RetroPi image for this, but Lakka looks a little bit more like the PSP interface, so I went with that. And let's make sure that it's not muted. Okay, there we go. Now we're not muted. I did notice that there's no indication if it's muted or not, so you'll just have to know that. So now it's not muted. And there's a battery indicator up here, which is pretty accurate. That's a nice thing that you don't always get with these rebuilds. Sometimes the battery information is not very accurate and it just kind of dies on you. And I put a few games on here. Like I said, I'm not a Sony guy, so I just looked up like what are the most interesting games on a PSP and put a couple of these on. And I also have some of my old games, like I had FIFA 96 for the Sega Genesis and NHL 96. And some of my old Nintendo games. It really plays up to like the era of the PS1. I don't know about PS2, I haven't tested any of that. But it definitely does PSP games. And so let's try out one of the ones that I enjoyed the most, Wipeout Pulse. And of course the built-in speaker is nothing incredible compared to today's things, but it's still good enough. And I am not an expert in this game. I've only played it a tiny bit. Also, these old screens, they really attract fingerprints, quite unlike today's oleophobic screen coatings. Well, that wasn't kind of them. Yeah, so that's one game, and I can just go home and close this and get into something else, like Rainbow Six. And here is Rainbow Six Vegas, which it's not quite as fun on the PSP as it is on PC or on Xbox, but you know, it's a game. Probably not the game that's the most optimized for handheld gaming like this. But it works, and I can shoot things. So let's get out of here. And I'll show you Nintendo. Let's do Super Mario Brothers. Like this is Super Mario Brothers. You can see that there's little things like there's a little graphical glitch every now and then, and when it starts, there's a little bit of blurriness to the text. I don't know what the deal is there. It's probably just the emulator, or maybe the CM4 is starting to overheat a little bit. But yeah, it works though. But I do enjoy these games, even though I'm terrible at them after all these years. And it's fun to be able to replay them on this guy. But yeah, that's Lakka. I have not used it until now, and it seems to work pretty well and is pretty optimized. There's definitely some tweaks that you want to do. I can feel there's a bit of heat on here. And if you run it with this open, it actually lets out a little bit more heat, lets a little airflow in. So yeah, I'll probably do something to get a little bit more airflow back there. But yeah, that is the PSPi going on a PSP 1000. Love the color of this thing. Don't love the fingerprints there. It's kind of crazy that in the past 20 years we've gotten so good that at like most times I don't even need to clean the iPhone screen off. But these things, they get scratches, they get fingerprints. But yeah, that was our childhood, you know. Everything. This I had to clean it up before I came out here because it was nasty from all the fingerprints and smudges on it, even though it's not a touchscreen. I don't think modders like Adam, who built this whole setup, care as much about like the price tag. They care about keeping old tech useful. There's something different about running these games on the original hardware setup and not on like cheap knockoff emulators. I remember seeing this video from Polymat a couple months ago. There's no rational explanation for why he spent months rebuilding a PSP from scratch. But sometimes the relationship we have with these old devices goes beyond reason. And you know what? With how much modern gaming takes us away from the raw fun we had back when this thing came out, I can understand it. Until next time, I'm Jeff Geerling.